Welcome everyone to today, Monday, July the 27th. I am Bosin Omofaye. This is your Frontier opening bell. I am Bosin Omofaye. Let's get on with today's show. Ali Kansachu, the CEO and the founder, Rich Frontiers Management in Nairobi. Good morning, Ali. Hope you had a great weekend.
Good to see you, and yes, I did. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chima Okadike, who is a consumer goods analyst at Vectiva Capital Management here in Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning, Chima.
Good morning, Marcin.
Great to see you. Thank you so much. If you just try to give us a minute, both of you, to recap where we finished off last week. On Sunday, which was yesterday, the Egyptian stock market came back strongly after they went for a public holiday on Thursday. So the markets in Egypt, in Cairo, was closed since Wednesday. So Sunday was the first trading day, and you can see that on your TV screen, 0.62% for the Egyptian 30. Nigerian market managed about 0.6% for the weekly. Again, we saw some gains before the end of the week from big names like Dangote Cement and some earnings that came after the hours by Lafarge Africa. In Ivory Coast, the BRVM was 0.13% positive. The Kenyan market, 1.62%. And South African GSE beat the dust, 55,645, now 0.76%. The Rand also took a bit of a beating, but held on to the 16 handle, and they didn't lose that over the weekend. Again, because the US dollar has been taking a bit of a beating throughout the week. Even today, the dollar is down against the euro, against the pound, and against the Australian dollar. Today and tomorrow, two-day FOMC meeting, Jerome Powell will stick to sub-zero interest rate level for the United States. That's a big story. But let's talk about the West African Nigerian market. Earnings coming through very strongly for the Nigerian market. The same story within the East African space. Some of the story coming from Unilever. Tomorrow T says the Unilever, which is the parent company in the UK, is planning some rejigging of its business model, and that may have some impact within the East African space. Meantime, Diageo, which is also based in the UK, now holds 50.3% equity in East African Breweries Limited. These are two corporate stories, but the big story for the East African state community is the passage of former Tanzanian President Benjamin Mkapa, whose Kenya is declaring a 3-day of mourning starting today officially. The diaspora remittances for Kenya up 12% in June, $288.5 million US dollars, and in Zambia, or in Zanzibar, the People's Bank of Zanzibar says they're buying Mufindi Community Bank for an undisclosed amount. Ali, hit the ground running here. Let's start about Benjamin Mkapa for about a minute.
So Benjamin Mkapa was the president of Tanzania. He was there for 2 terms, but I think most Africans will remember him as a peacemaker. He had a lot of involvement with the struggle against apartheid in South Africa, and was a champion of Black African rights there. He's been a peacemaker in the East African community. He was the interlocutor in the situation that pertained in Burundi. So a lot of positivity, a lot of goodwill towards the man. Here in Kenya, we've announced a 3-day mourning period, which speaks to his involvement also in the post-election violence in 2007 and 2008. He worked with Kofi to reconcile the opposing parties here as well. So I think, as an African, we all feel a loss here. This is an individual who, blessed other peacemakers, and he was one of those. So a big loss. And we all feel emotional about it. And I saw the footage over the weekend as well from Tanzania. Your next story was Kenya diaspora remittances. This is very interesting, up 12% in June, very counter trend. World Bank, IMF were predicting a 20 to 25% drop in full year remittances across the continent. So this is a bit of an outlier. We saw this happen previously, and there is some belief that if people feel they're returning, possibly they tend to send more money home ahead of that possible return. But this is a good sign, very positive, particularly in the context of the new COVID economy. Diageo, this is the UK, Diageo has increased its stake marginally in East African breweries. It's the majority shareholder. But bear in mind, you know, this COVID period has meant that beer and alcohol consumption has gone down because of the curfews that we've had here in Kenya. I saw an Economist article which was highly skeptical about Tanzania's GDP figures, and they've been looking specifically at beer consumption in Tanzania. Diageo is also in Tanzania and in Uganda, so it's an East African regional brand. It's a real a strong name at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, and I think Diageo have a medium to long-term outlook, and they're probably buying it because of the recent price weakness we've seen at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Limuru Tea, this is owned by Unilever Tea. We have about 5 big tea companies which were initially created in the pre-independence period. This is one of them. And what's happened as our city of Nairobi has expanded, this real estate has become incredibly valuable, and the valuation is not reflecting the real estate value. This is on the periphery of Nairobi, so it's in the books for about $10,000 an acre. It's worth about $150,000 an acre, so 15x just on net asset value. But they're restructuring their portfolio. We should see what happens. Final story of yours was Zanzibar. Of course, Zanzibar, part of Tanzania. There's a bit of bank consolidation. This trend is going on, you know, from Nigeria to Zambia to Kenya, and I think Zanzibar is playing that as well.
It's a big story, banking consolidation across the continent. Thank you so much. I know Chima can relate to consumption of alcohol, the COVID-19 period, the lockdown, and what have you with the Nigerian brewery sector. Chima, give us a minute. Let's quickly bring on Uche Namenis, who is FX trader and managing partner at Blue FX Nigeria. Good morning, Uche.
Good morning, Boston. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's a very big week for you. I know the FOMC today and tomorrow. Dollar is under pressure. I saw dollar index this morning, 94.03 against some of these big peers, the Australian dollar, the euro, and the pound. You think this is going to be another pressure week here for the greenback?
Yes, I think very correct that this week is sort of going to be like a pivotal week of some sort, given the FOMC meeting. I think right now the central bank are starting to wonder and worry as to how low the US dollar can trade. And it's looking like the pressure is really, really significant to the downside. And that in itself will start to worry at some point. And not just for developed markets now, we're talking about frontier markets and emerging markets, you know. That in itself is not looking so good if we continue to have that downside pressure to continue to precipitate. I think J. Powell is going to try and try to bolster some sort of support. I think that's what he's going to do in the near term, given this FOMC meeting, to try to just continue to keep things abreast and sort of conservative in the financial market. There's also that thing that investors are looking at, the possibility that this COVID-related, should I say, downside economic pressure would continue to build and go to net, and really there's no near-term solution as what has been propagated by the mainstream media, and that's why we are seeing the US 10-year yield falling significantly lower, and we can see precious metal on the other side of the coin trying to have that significant bullish sentiment. So yes, I think this week is going to be quite pivotal.
So I don't understand this, Uche. Bitcoin is also up now to $10,000. That's crazy.
Right. So it's not just this is where it becomes very worrisome, you know, because right now nobody wants the Federal Reserve do not want any form of liquidity out of the market of the US, right? Now when people are starting to price that fiat currency is getting to the place where supply is too much, they would look to sort of try to protect their assets. And that's what we are seeing in this precious metal and crypto, That has been a political will to suppress Bitcoin to move in that significant way. But right now, what we are seeing now is that we are having that sentiment shift, and people are saying, well, we don't think this thing is exactly entirely positive and bullish as we were been pricing. There is a coronavirus issue that continues to stay. Economies are still starting to sort of go back into some level of lockdown, and the risk is really, really huge underneath. So that's why we are seeing between this cryptocurrency and precious metal appreciating on the back of that.
Okay, the currency story, I'm sure Ali will talk about the rand here, what it will mean for Africa's most correlated currency, sub-Saharan Africa for the rand and for the markets there for this week. But let's touch on with the Nigerian and West African space, where Chima will speak to us in about a minute. But let's just give you a quick rundown of what the top stories are. Lafarge earnings, Airtel earnings in Nigeria, Airtel Africa stories, very, very big. Earnings per share for Airtel, $1.01. A very strong second quarter revenue up 6.9%, $850 million US. Net profit, nearly $60 million. Lafarge EBITDA, nearly 30% upside. Net income, 60%. Net sales down slightly, 5.1%. In Ghana, the AFDB spent the weekend throwing a bit of money around the continent. A very good deal. South Africa got $288 million US. The Ghanaians over the weekend got $69 million US to fight the pandemic. Meantime, the University of Cape Coast and Park Agrotech in the private sector, they're teaming together to revive the Komende Sugar Factory in Ghana. That's some of the stories here, and you have the Ivorian Sea Cable there paying 75 franc as net dividend per share later this week. Chima, let's talk about Nigeria's consumer goods space. These are the big guys in the industry, but I want you also to speak more about this alcohol sales in South Africa, in Kenya, and the Nigeria beer consumption, and the outlook for these guys within the consumer goods space.
Thank you, Martin. So, like Ali said, we had expected that this would be a very pressured period for the beer makers around the globe. This is because we had seen that for many of these countries, they had imposed curfews around. So, for example, in Nigeria, towards April, towards the end of Q1 and into April, we had seen that there some curfews imposed as well as some lockdown measures. So this had significantly affected major point of sales for these brewers, which are beer parlors, clubs, lounges, as well as some other point of sale areas. So we saw that we had expected that some of these companies to move more to online sales and to try to use some promos and discounts to prop sales.
Let's move on very quickly to the Southern African market. If you look at the rand, finished off around 16 to the dollar before the weekend. All of this on the back of the pressure. But the big news everyone is waiting for within the South African space is the MTN group. Even here in Nigeria, we're looking at the MTN numbers for the second half and the first half of the year. Meantime, Pepco Holdings, which is of a clothing retailer, or have the number of outlets also in Nigeria, says 17.2% sales slump they saw in the third quarter of their own fiscal year ending June. Zimbabwe is setting a new rules, or has set a new rules, single FX rate for the payment for goods and services, while the authorities are moving now to reopen the short stock exchange. And Angola got $1.04 million from EFDB for 2 new research projects. Ali, let's see the Southern African market space.
So let me just start with the rand first of all, which you're asking about. Obviously, the rand is highly correlated to the risk-on, risk-off type sentiment in the markets. And we've seen it quite strong. You know, we hit lows of around 19 early in the year. We're now around 16.47. And I think two things are helping. One is the general sentiment, the sell-off in the dollar as well, which has been, you know, quite steep and precipitous of late. And then the gold price. I mean, you know, South Africa is one of the biggest gold miners in the world. And I think that's also supporting. On the other side, of course, you've got a very high debt to GDP ratio. You've got a much lower interest rate carry story for the Rand. So it's a fine balance. But for now, I think the Rand is supported around here. And a lot will depend on the direction of the dollar. With respect to other stories, Pepkor Holdings, general merchandise, clothing, you'd expect a sales slump. 17.2% is probably not that bad in the circumstances that that period was covering. MTN, that looks a pretty eye-popping number that they're expecting, plus 140%. And this speaks to the appetite for people to have more data and basically the information economy acceleration we found ourselves in 2020. You've seen this trend pretty much across the globe. Choppies, that's interesting. Botswana lifting the suspension of Choppies. Choppies went on this massive expansion spree. There were a few Choppies here in Nairobi, but they kind of then fell by the wayside. They retreated. They got suspended from the JSE. It's been quite a dramatic story. So it's interesting to see that maybe they're about to resurrect themselves, as it were. And that would be good news because it was a real brand Botswana story. Zimbabwe, new rules of single FX rate. Look, I mean, every day we get new information. The problem here is the stock market is still shut and the mobile money platform is still shut. And as we know, Mnangagwa is toe-to-toe with the wealthiest gentleman in Zimbabwe, the CEO, the owner of Econet. AFDB, they've been stepping up, I noticed over the weekend, pushing money around, helping African countries, specifically with their COVID strategy. Good to see Adesina stepping up here. You know, we need multilateral institutions and our own, of course, to do as much as they can in what remains a situation where the virus remains an exogenous uncertainty, which has not been resolved yet.
Interesting. Thank you, Ali. Quickly, let's get Uchenna to conclude the Nigerian brewing industry and consumer goods story for us.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry for the break. So like I was saying, compared to last year, this period has not been very profitable for international breweries. Added to that, we saw that gross profit declined significantly from about 6 billion last year to about 3.3 billion due to the decline in revenue and the not so great decline in cost of sales. Another pressure point for the company was in terms of other expenses. We saw that for the year it increased from about 6 billion to about 11 billion, from about 6 billion, sorry, 3 billion to about 11 billion, and this was mostly due to foreign exchange losses that it realized. So we expect that in terms of importation of raw materials and other foreign denominated debts, due to the FX volatility we can see now, we should still see, it has been seeing some sort of losses. So we saw that pressure its earnings for the period. Now, when we look at its EPS for the period, about last year, it was about EPS for international breweries was around 80 kobo per share, but currently around now it's about 35 kobo per share. This is due to the depressed earnings, about negative 35 kobo per share. This is due to the combination of the depressed earnings and the diluted share base. So we know that International Breweries recently completed a rights issue, increasing its share base from about 8 billion to about 26 billion. So that's how we saw that the EPS for the company decreased significantly. So all in, we still expect that most of the other brewery companies will bring out results similar to this because fundamentals in that space are much the same. For international breweries, for example, at least they still have a lot of finance costs that's bringing that down. But when you look at revenue expectations, cost expectations, administrative expense expectations, we still expect the same thing to affect these other brewery companies.
But we saw a bit of a volume movement in Nigerian breweries last week, Uchenna. Is there any idea what's going on over there with this brewing giant?
So for Nigerian breweries, even when we had maintained our expectation of the possible decline in bottom line, we still saw that investors were interested in the stock. We think or we believe that it's basically investors trying to take profits or bargain hunts, just trying to for most of it. We believe that they were foreign investors who were unable to leave the market and were trying to find good stocks to stay in. So we saw that rally for a while. Then we started to see some profit taking on the stock. So I believe it was just investors trying to bargain hunt and profit take at the time. There's no significant news that is coming out for Nigerian breweries at this time. We still expect that their performance will be poorer compared to previous year. But then if we look at the general brewery space in terms of Guinness, Nigerian breweries, and international breweries, we definitely expect them to be the best performer, given their larger market share and their advantages in this space.
Interesting. Thank you very much for breaking down the bottle of beer there for us, as it were, just as Ali did with the East African breweries. Interesting time we have here, because with the lockdown, restriction in movements and what have you, social distancing, the large wild parties nearly on a daily basis in Nigeria, for example, in cities like Lagos and the Southwest and others, have been seriously contained. So the cartons of beer moving around and all of that has significantly reduced. Folks tend to drink more when they are at parties and at big events that they would ordinarily consume at home if they're working from home. I know that will definitely happen. So those binging, the South Africans are coping with that as well, with some very unpleasant consequences, as it were, domestic violence, rape, and a lot of other things of that nature. Let's go to North Africa and just wrap up the show this morning. The news coming through from Bloomberg this morning that the Egyptian markets have seen, the local bond have seen major inflows of buying by foreign portfolio investors, about 10.6 billion US dollars as of June this year. And in the first 2 weeks of July, 3 billion US dollars inflows from foreign buyers into the Egyptian market, Egyptian bond. Meantime, on Sunday, the first official trading day for the week, the Egyptian Central Bank issued 24 billion Egyptian pounds in treasury bills and bonds to the market. That's keeping foreign investors happy. Fitch Ratings placed Morocco's BBB rating, but the outlook is now negative from stable. And Maroc leasing company, first half 2020 net profit down 58.8%. And they got a new managing director, by the way, Adil Rizal. Sonaset is posting 34% turnover drop in June. Ali, let's just talk about the Egyptian market, the flow of foreign portfolios, where this confidence is coming from, and what has it got to do with the currency space, which I will touch on for a minute for us.
So just quickly on Egypt, the currency has been reasonably stable, and the carry that you're getting is still in double digits. Now compare that to the Rand, where interest rates are sub 5%, and you can see why money will flow back into Egypt. And this is what I've spoken about before. The Egyptians are very clever at making themselves very attractive. Right now, they were the most attractive carry trade in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and it's going to be the same story this year. And as latest data is pointing out, investors are again piling in into this carry trade in Egypt, i.e. buying local denominated bills, running the currency risk, and earning double-digit returns in an environment where you can't earn double-digit returns in many places. Quickly to touch on Morocco, BBB rating. This is a trend we're seeing across the continent. I mean, I think Fitch have said they've downgraded something like 19 African countries and have about 10 on downgrade watch. So it's pretty grim stuff. This trend will continue because balance sheets are maxed out, credit account deficits are growing, and really it is quite a complex situation. And the double whammy is if you go and take a moratorium, Fitch kind of automatically downgrade you for that. So it's a bit of a double whammy. But overall, where it seemed to be in a more relaxed environment for frontier and emerging markets for now. Let's see how long that lasts.
Let's see how long it lasts. Ali, thank you so much. Uchenna, you have a minute on the currency up now.
Right. So I think another thing that we've sort of not really highlighted is how the North Africans are sort of dealing with the pandemic. And I think what has sort of been quite clear right now is amongst everything in terms of adjusting for variables for risk, investors have also looked to price in how severe outbreaks are in different economies, right? And I've seen that that has sort of been shown that the Egyptians and all the North African states have sort of created some sort of relaxed kind of relief measures when it comes as a result to the pandemic when you want to compare to East Africa, South Africa, and West Africa. So that in itself has created some sort of investing and business comfort. And I think that's also helping to also the inflow into the Egyptian economy and thus affecting their currency play too.
Nice one, Uche. Chima, what's your take on the consumer goods market space on the equity side for Nigeria this week? There's a final trading week in July.
So, like we've said, we expect that we'll see some major results this week. It's the final week in July. We'll see some H1 results for most of the consumer goods companies. Currently, only Cadbury, Unilever, and International Breweries have released. So we expect that to guide investors as they go about trading in this final week. However, for some of these companies, we expect that investors have already priced in the expectation of a negative results into the trading, into the pricing of the companies. So, for example, Unilever, when Unilever came out, there was no change in price for about 2 days. It was just around Friday that we saw that stock lost about 4%. So investors aren't really reacting as much as we would expect. But we still expect that depending on the gravity of the performance, whether negative or surprising, we should still see investors reward or punish some of these consumer goods stocks.
Interesting. We've enjoyed having all of you on the show today. Chima Ukadike from Betiva Capital, thank you very much. Ali Kansacho from Nairobi, CEO and founder for Chess Management. And of course, Uchenna Menis, the managing partner and FX trader at Blue FX Nigeria. Thank you, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Have a great day. I will see you again tomorrow.